Better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. Abraham Lincoln. Topic I wanted to discuss today is when to keep our mouth shut. Or, in Shakespearean speak, to speak or not to speak. There's a character named Thumper in Disney's movie Bambi who shares wise words, and she says, "Don't have anything nice to say, don't say nothing at all." And although this is sound advice, unfortunately, it's just not that simple. Once we speak words out into the world, we can never take them back, and they can never be unheard. Our words have both positive and negative impact on everyone around us. And I've found that it pays dividends to stop and think before speaking, which brings me to rule number 1 out of 5 rules, which is think and pause before you speak. Often if we're thinking, hey, should I say this? It's probably something you could just pocket and you should just keep to yourself, if you're even asking that question. I reviewed some wisdom from Socrates that we'll go over, Dale Carnegie, and just gleaned from my past experiences. And I wanted to share just it's a hypothetical story, but it brings the reason why it's important. And this story is about an expert landscaper. He is world renowned for his work. He does elaborate gardens and ponds and water features and puts in Roman statues, and everybody knows who he is. And he just has a beautiful eye for design, and he's very wealthy. He visits a good friend of his. He goes to his house, and he notices immediately that good friend has poor plant placement, just bad overall landscape design. He immediately thinks, I can help this friend. I can share some knowledge. I've been traveling around, been doing gardens in Italy and over in Europe and here in the States. And he begins sharing his knowledge and the few things that good friend can change in his yard that can make a huge difference. And he even offers to help that friend, says, hey, I got some free time next week. I'd love to come over and help you. This is all in good intentions. He's not trying to do anything to hurt his friend. He's coming from the heart. He wants to help. And this is where I've run into problems, and this is why I really thought about this question a lot. But let's say that good friend had been anticipating this landscaper's arrival for months, and he'd been working on his yard for months. He'd been planting plants and moving the placement and mulching and putting in a landscape barriers, and he spent hundreds of hours of labor. You can imagine this good friend would feel pretty lousy when receiving this advice from this world-renowned landscaper, and he'd be like, oh my God. He probably wouldn't even tell the landscaper that he did all this work over the past month. He'd probably just feel super lousy, just keep it to himself, and the landscaper would never even know that he hurt his good friend's feelings. And that's where it's a little bit more complex than just saying good. That's going to lead me to rule number 2. Don't give advice that isn't asked for. This doesn't apply to dangerous situations where somebody's about to fall off a cliff or there's a large grizzly bear around the bend that you need to tell somebody, hey, you don't want to go over there. There's a huge grizzly bear that's eating a deer. If it has to do with danger and safety, you do want to give people advice pretty quickly. Reviewed information from Socrates, the famous Greek philosopher, and read that he came up with a 3-filter test, which is going to be rule number 3. What he said is before a person speaks, they must ask themselves these following 3 questions. The first being, am I sure that what I'm going to say is true? Second, is what I'm going to say a good thing? And the third, do I really need to say it or is it useful? That's going to eliminate gossip, negative jabs, and you're basically going to be speaking stuff that serves the end user, who serves them some sort of purpose. In Dale Carnegie's book that he published in 1936, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I absolutely think is a must-read for everyone in life, he came up with principle number 1, which we call rule number 4. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. He talks about when you're doing those things, what ends up happening to the person that you're talking to is they dig their heels in with whatever, and they pick up their shield and their sword, and they feel attacked, even If you're trying to do good, they're gonna just not listen. They're going to dig in and defend whatever it is that you are criticizing, condemning, or complaining about. The last conundrum that I reflected on is using humor and entertainment. Growing up, I absolutely loved to make people laugh back in elementary school and high school. And often the easiest form of laughter was when we put somebody else down or it was at somebody else's expense. You're using somebody as the butt of a joke. Before making this video, I reached out to a friend who was often the butt of many of my jokes back in elementary school. And I wanted to understand the impact that it had on him. And I also wanted to just genuinely apologize. Even though we're still friends and I'm lucky to be able to call him my friend and I'm sure he knows who he is, he could vividly recall times that he had been the butt of a joke. Definitely made a lasting negative impact, and for that, I'm definitely sorry, but hopefully you can use my learning lesson to your advantage. Later in life, I realized rule number 5, which is when using humor and entertainment, do not use it at anyone's expense. So those are all the 5 rules. Those are the rules to speak or not to speak. So to recap, the 5 rules are as said. Rule number 1 is think and pause before you speak. When in doubt, probably just keep your mouth shut. Rule number 2, don't give advice if it wasn't asked for. Rule number 3, does it pass Socrates' test? Is it true? Is it good and kind? And do you absolutely need to share it? Number 4 is don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Number 5 is when using humor or entertainment, do not use it at anyone's expense. Guys and girls, when you use these and follow these 5 rules, I believe it will benefit you not only in friendships and relationships, but also making a positive impact. If you think that there's something that I missed, did I say something that you disagree with? If so, please leave them in the comments. This only helps me get better. It helps everybody that's watching this and reading this. And we'd love for you to join our community. If you watched all the way to this point, I just want to say thank you and make a bigger positive impact. The like button, subscribe to the channel, I'd greatly appreciate it. Lastly, I just want to wish everybody a Kaizen life. We love you.